Hello there, I'm Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Lounge Ronin, all things, everything. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to discuss Margaret Sanger, ambitious feminist and racist eugenicist. Margaret Sanger is largely renowned for her work as an ambitious feminist, leading the birth control revolution in America and largely around the world. Now, with all things, everything, I implore you to do your own research, as you may be surprised at what you learn about the world and yourself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay. This article is from the University of Chicago. It's Margaret Sanger, ambitious feminist and racist eugenicist, written September 21st, 2022. Sexuality in the United States is not the same as it's seen in the 1800s. Today, a large proportion of women in the country begin utilizing a form of contraception at a young age in order to enjoy the pleasures of sex without worrying about having to halt one's education or career in order to be a mother. However, in the 1800s and the early 1900s, usage of contraceptives was far less common due to the laws prohibiting the distribution of contraceptives or simply information about contraceptives via email or any other non-approved settings. Margaret Sanger sought to change this. Margaret Sanger is largely renowned for her work as an ambitious feminist, leading the birth control revolution in America and largely around the world. However, Sanger's motivations behind this work had dark roots in racism and eugenics, demonstrating the importance of acknowledging the dangerous rhetoric for her work and how it may have impacted social groups around her. Sanger's childhood and early adulthood are said to have largely shaped her passion towards helping women obtain methods of birth control. Born in 1879, Sanger was raised in a family of 11 children, which resulted in a childhood largely shaped by her mother's life as a stressed and overworked mother. In her early adulthood, Sanger became a nurse in New York, a career that opened her eyes to the struggles of women without access to birth control faced due to unplanned and ill-equipped pregnancies. In her autobiography, Sanger recalled numerous occasions in which women came to her seeking a way to avoid or prevent pregnancies. In one instance, a woman asked, "Miss Higgins, Mrs. Sanger, what should I do? What should I do to not have another baby right away?" In another instance, a woman had several miscarriages and 6 children, each with a different father. While doctors and nurses knew that she would likely return again with pregnancy-related health issues, they did nothing about it because pregnancy as its related issues were deemed to be natural and therefore did not require a method of prevention. Hold up a second. So in the 1800s, in the early 1900s, we had baby mamas running about. This woman had 6 children, each with a different father. Okay, so the baby mama epidemic is something that's been going on for quite some time. And we can't pinpoint this to just being a new thing or a black issue, because I can assure you at this hospital, they were mostly treating, if only, white people. Let's continue. As such, despite the numerous complaints, most of the issues regarding young women in pregnancy were either dismissed by doctors or doctors were unable to help due to the Comstock laws. The Comstock Act of 1873 made it illegal to publish and distribute and possessed obscene information which included information about medications or other methods of abortion and contraception. Therefore, the United States of America in the 1800s and early 1900s was a place in which contraceptives use a distribution was largely limited and criminalized. This criminalization of widespread birth control, paired with the interaction Sanger had with women desperate to delay motherhood, inspired Sanger to strongly advocate for widespread access to birth control, a fight she devoted her entire life to. In 1914, Sanger published the first issue of her feminist magazine, known as Woman Rebel, which was quickly barred from the mail due to the Comstock laws. However, Sanger decided to move forward with publishing more issues of Woman Rebel and working with others to secretly deliver copies down mail chutes at night, knowing that she might face jail time or other forms of punishment for her actions. She also opened a clinic in Brownsville, New York to distribute information about birth control, something illegal under New York law at the time. Following her arrest, slightly over a week after the successful opening of her clinic and quick release on bail, Sanger went straight back to the clinic and continued her work, demonstrating her determination and persistence. Sanger continued her fight, founding what is known today as Planned Parenthood, launching another publication known as Birth Control Review, founding the American Birth Control League, and more, and eventually her efforts helped lead to the legalization and popular usage of birth control in the United States of America. Clearly, Sanger was a key historical figure in assembling and spreading birth control. Wait, hold on. Sorry, I got distracted for a moment there. Clearly, Sanger was a key historical figure in assembling and spearheading the birth control movement in America. Due to this, Sanger is largely remembered in terms of her admirable feminism and passionate and caring heart that led her work to spring out of the empty Sanger had for poor, suffering women. Everything just described is true. Sanger was a prominent historical figure known for her efforts toward the legalization and widespread usage of contraceptives in America, and her work as a nurse in life with her overworked mother were inspirations toward this goal. However, there are far more important inspirations behind Sanger's work than a quick Google searches delve into. Specifically, Sanger's writings shed light on underlying motives of Sanger in her movement toward family planning, eugenics, and racism. Sanger strongly backed the field of eugenics and saw birth control as an innovative and safe way to medically allow for limiting abilities of certain populations to reproduce. Her eugenic beliefs also found themselves rooted in the race, greatly affecting African American populations in America, and furthering beliefs that people of color were lesser than or appropriate for being used as a test subject for medical advancements. Both of these belief systems drove Sanger's fight for widespread, easy access to birth control in America. The Tuskegee experiments, anyone? We have to ask ourselves, why is it that most Planned Parenthoods are in black neighborhoods? That's something you have to ask yourself. You have to ask yourself, why is it that the Democratic Party pushes for contraceptions and abortions? When you look into the history books, it was the Democratic Party that started the Ku Klux Klan. It was a Democratic Party that was against freeing the slaves. Granted, we know that, Lincoln did that due to a logistical reasoning, not due to a war funding logistical reason, not due because he wanted to free the slaves. He was a free soilist. And if you don't know what a free soilist is, it's someone who's indifferent to slavery. But the fact of the matter is, you look at the recent the recent Democratic convention. They had a portable abortion clinic in front of the convention center in Chicago, which is a mostly predominantly black city. I mean, you know, use your constructive criticism, ladies and gents. I think it's pretty apparent. The extreme acts that many of these movements, whether it's the feminist movement or whatever, have largely aimed at not only pushing forward their version of the world, but also diminishing, and at times, clearly here with Sanger's work, eradicating other populations of people. So, she used the idea of providing, safe health care for women's reproductive rights in the veins of eliminating a portion of women within the country. That's feminism for you. Let's continue. Here we have an image of Sanger covering her mouth as a form of protest due to not being allowed to openly talk about birth control in Boston, circa 1929. So, propaganda, just, more propaganda. Let's continue. For one, Sanger was a strong proponent of eugenics, and many of her writings demonstrated the clear link she saw between controlling reproduction of certain groups and birth control. Sanger believed that the country was suffering greatly due to uncontrolled reproduction, specifically the unstable majority of the feeble-minded people. I'll repeat that. Specifically, the unstable majority of the feeble-minded people living in city slums, overridden with disease, poverty, and other struggles. At the time, it was thought that feeble-mindedness was associated with the abnormally high rates of fertility, which was described as a biological menace. And many believed that reproduction of feeble-minded people would only result in pauperium, or insanity, in the following generations. Because of this, Sanger and many others turned towards contraceptives to fight this emergency in order to lessen the burden and protect the intelligence of the community as a whole. Sanger argued that the modern society had been too laissez-faire, respecting the personal liberty of the individual only in regard to unrestricted and irresponsible bringing into the world of filth and poverty, and overcrowding procession of infants foredoomed to death in heritable diseases. In other words, Sanger argued that feeble-minded people should not be granted the personal liberty to reproduce as much as normal people. Rather, she proposed the segregation and sterilization of feeble-minded groups. Specifically, she argued that every feeble-minded girl in her childbearing age needed to be segregated in order to prevent her from bearing imbecile children. Sanger also argued that male defectives are less dangerous, claiming that segregation of women would only handle part of the problem, and therefore the immediate sterilization of men was needed in order to ensure that parenthood is absolutely forbidden to the feeble-minded. Therefore, Sanger demonstrated clear objections to free abilities to reproduce a lesser than groups of society, and she reorganized the way in which birth control could help prevent population growth in feeble-minded groups. Now remember, this is around the early 1900s. So they were still fresh with the idea in their head that black people were three-fourths human and all that fun jazz. So you can imagine when it comes to quote unquote feeble-minded groups. Let's continue. Moreover, Sanger was extremely important in establishing the link between birth control and eugenics, as she saw it as a productive means toward backing the ideas of then prominent eugenicists. She noted that eugenics had been given proof that reckless spawning carries with it the seeds of destruction. and saw birth control as a solution for eugenics to aid in reducing the population of feeble-minded citizens. Sanger claimed, quote, both birth control is really the greatest and most truly eugenic method, and its adoption as part of the program of eugenics would immediately give a concrete and realistic power to the science. I'm going to repeat that. Sanger claimed birth control is really the greatest and most truly eugenic method, and its adoption as part of the program of eugenics would immediately give a concrete and realistic power to that science. It is therefore clear that Sanger was a prominent figure in connecting eugenics problem to the solution of birth control. However, Sanger's problematic viewpoints and stances surrounding birth control did not stop at eugenics targeted at poor people living in city slums. Sanger was also an important figure in linking birth control to reducing the population of African Americans. In Medical Apartheid, the dark history of medical experiments on Black Americans from colonial times to the present, Harriet Washington describes that while Sanger was a complex, passionate woman that shaped American reproductive policy by instigating the fall of Comstock laws, pushing the development of the birth control pill, and founding that we know today as Planned Parenthood, she did so in ways that blatantly harmed the Black American population. Specifically, Sanger's American Birth Control League closely collaborated with the Clinical Research Bureau to form the Birth Control Federation of America, BFCA, in 1939. The BFCA quickly planned the Negro Project. The BFCA quickly planned the Negro Project, a project that, while claiming to be established for the benefit of the colored people, resulted in the formation of family planning centers that were found to be problematic for many reasons. First, these clinics were likely erected as experimental clinics aiming to find the best ways to reduce or eliminate the Black population in regions densely populated by African Americans. Additionally, these clinics prepared to be motivated by the ability to test new birth control methods or less valuable populations. The BFCA, which Sanger was a key figure in running, demonstrated clear racial motivations in erecting these clinics and took actions that would bias the medical field against African Americans for decades to come. I'm going to repeat that. The BFC, which Sanger was a key figure in running, demonstrated clear racial motivations in erecting these clinics and took actions that would bias the medical field against African Americans for decades to come. Her actions have contributed to the genocide of millions of Black babies in America. Just think about that and keep that in mind as we keep moving forward. While these claims of Sanger's personal poor motivation behind clinics may at first seem far-fetched, Sanger's writings demonstrate that she was likely in agreement with the ideas of using eugenics on specifically African Americans to better the human race, as she knew she would have to fight in order to ensure she did not come across this way to the public. In The Pivot of Civilization, Sanger spent several pages detailing an anecdote about a Black feeble-minded girl whose uncontrolled reproduction resulted in 16 children, all of which either died at a young age or turned into criminals. So here we have, in the late 1900s, all right, the late 1930s, okay, here we have Margaret Sanger saying that we have to euthanize Black girls because they're whores and they run around with a bunch of baby daddies. Where do you think the Democratic Party gets their talking points from? They're so hell-bent on protecting reproductive rights. When you look into the origins of the production of the reproductive rights, it's all about preventing and eradicating the Black population. But if you say something like this, you're deemed a heretic. You're deemed racist, sexist, and misogynist, whatever. But here are the facts. As you can see from this article, everything is sourced. So Think about it. Millions and millions of black babies have been genocided in this country due to this one woman's actions. And then I'm over here trying to figure out, why are black women celebrating a white woman who actively praised and wanted to wipe out black people? This is the thing that I'll never seem to comprehend, how the black community, especially black democratic women and black liberal women, will celebrate and praise white women who actively went about to destroying and sabotaging the black community and movements. I'll never understand it. And then you allow these black boule women to tell you how to think and feel and destroy your own communities and your own families in the guise of Margaret Sanger. Let's continue. The pivot of American civilization. Sanger spent several pages detailing an anecdote about a black feeble-minded girl whose uncontrolled reproduction resulted in 16 children, all of which either died at a young age or turned into criminals. Sanger clearly emphasized the race of the young girl, which therefore allowed her to generalize these negative traits of uncontrollable and unhealthy populations to all African Americans. Sanger clearly emphasized the race of the young girl, which therefore allowed her to generalize these negative traits of uncontrollable and unhealthy populations to all African Americans. In addition to this, Sanger seemingly understood how what she was doing would be perceived and interpreted by the public. Sanger wrote, quote, "The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We do not want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it occurs to any of their more rebellious members." I'm going to repeat that. Sanger wrote, "The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We do not want the world to get out of hand that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it occurs to any of their more rebellious members." She's telling you right there what her plan is. That she was going to use the church to commit a genocide on the black population. Think about that. Do some reflecting on that. Sanger therefore clearly understood that only setting up these clinics in southern regions with black I'm so steamed right now. With black populations would be scrutinized and called out for what they truly were. So she thought to find ways to manipulate the public into trusting her clinics. For example, 1 minute, guys. Hello there, I'm Kios, Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Ronin Art and Music, home to Ronin Music, Lounge Ronin, all things, everything, the Monday Mindset, Rants, and Ronin Reviews. We strive to make holistic and authentic content that aims to improve your individuality, mental fortitude, and peace of mind. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Stay positive, stay focused, stay true. Sanger therefore clearly understood that only setting up these clinics in southern regions with black populations would be scrutinized and called out for what they truly were. So she thought to find ways to manipulate the public into trusting her clinics. For example, Sanger recruited the support of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and What? Okay, hold on. For example, Sanger recruited the support of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.? And she also actively searched for a black doctor and social worker to join her team. She recruited Martin Luther King Jr. Sanger then clearly knew that her writings, coupled with suspicious concentrations of clinics in areas with a large black population, would be questioned, requiring her to require trustworthy black society figures to support her case. I'm going to repeat that last part. Sanger then clearly knew that her writings, coupled with the suspicious concentration of clinics in areas with a large black population, would be questioned, requiring her to acquire trustworthy black society figures to support her cause. She literally manipulated leaders of the black community for her own cause. She tricked black leaders to advocate for genocide of black babies in America. Now that's true white supremacy. Despite her efforts to maintain public trust, however, many black Americans grew suspicious of Sanger's efforts. Many black people began believing that Sanger was seeking to medically remove the African American population from the country, claiming that encouraging blacks to use birth control is comparable to trying to eliminate this group from society. I'm going to repeat that. African American population from the country, claiming that encouraging blacks to use birth control is comparable to trying to eliminate this group from society. In addition to this, a gender divide arose and prevailed in which men were much more likely to denounce birth control as genocide than women. I'm going to repeat that. In addition to this, a gender divide arose and prevailed in which men were much more likely to denounce birth control as genocide than women. In contrast, most black women embraced birth control. As we may expect, birth control had allowed many black women to have education and career options. So despite questionable activity of prominent figures like Sanger pushing birth control in their communities, these women were open to the option to delay motherhood in order to pursue their education and careers. And look how that turned out for the black community. Look how that turned out for the black community. Look what that did to the black community. Think about that. Take a second and truly think about what that has done to the black community. As many women today know, this is still a strong motivation to take birth control. Birth control helps reduce the risk of having to sacrifice one's education and or career to take care of their children. It is clear that birth control information and widespread usage has been extremely powerful in progressing gender equality and reducing the risk of unwanted pregnancies in our modern society. Importantly, Margaret Sanger played a major role in making birth control accessible in the United States, and therefore allowing many women to live their own lives separate from strictly motherhood. However, while deemed a feminist hero in her time that affected generations of women after her, Sanger pushed several dangerous ideas in terms of the need for birth control. Rather than promoting birth control for safe and healthy sexual behavior, as was commonly seen today, Sanger saw birth control as a way to better the human race, to reduce reproduction of lesser than groups of society, and to make society more even in terms of the fit and the unfit. Additionally, Sanger published her eugenic agenda, especially in groups of race. Her experimentation with birth control types and clinics in black populations, while helpful in terms of allowing black women to pursue professional careers, led to medical biases toward black people that still persist today. Therefore, Sanger teaches an extremely important lesson in terms of historical figures. Often in history, prominent leaders behind widespread social changes that we see as beneficial today had ill motivations that greatly harmed social rhetoric around them. Therefore, while it is important to recognize how their work led to positive changes, it is equally, if not more important, to also consider how the motivations behind their work affected society and its viewpoints. About the author. Abigail Shivers is a third-year undergraduate majoring in neuroscience and psychology at UE Chicago. She's involved in and on the boards of neuroscience education. So, there you have it. Margaret Sanger, ambitious feminist and racist eugenicist. I really hope that my listeners out there, especially those who are women and those who are black women, please take some time and really do some reflection on this article. Read it yourself if you need to. you know, below, all the way below, is the works cited right here, where everything is here, where you can go. So it's easy accessible information. But I really hope people take some time and really reflect on this information, especially those in the black community. After what the DNC pulled with the Planned Parenthood in front of the convention and actively doing abortions and God knows what else, you really have to start asking yourselves, do they really have the best intention for humanity? Sure, yes, women now have more accessibility to healthcare for their reproductive rights, and yes, they're able to pursue their careers and all that, but at the expense of what? Genocide? And you may claim that my words are a bit aggressive, but this is what it is. 90% of what Planned Parenthood does are abortions. You can pull up the statistics yourself. They don't do any Planned Parenthooding. Why is it that when churches go out and pray in front of abortion clinics, they get raided and arrested by the FBI and they get sent to prison? But then centers where they actually help women to have kids and a lot of them are Christian centers, they get firebombed. No investigations, nothing. So when I say that the Democratic Party is a party of genocide, they have made that very apparent due to their actions and their support. The Democratic Party is a feminist party. Margaret Sanger is a feminist. Feminism advocated for genocide. It's right there for you. We just read the information. So I implore my feminists out there to maybe do some personal reflection on what you're believing in and what you're advocating for. Because many of you don't really realize that you're advocating for your own eradication. The Democratic Party is not your friend. The Republican Party is not your friend. But the Democratic Party sure as fuck ain't your friend to your reproductive rights or to black women or black men as a whole. They're not looking out for the Latinos either. They sure as hell ain't looking out for the poor whites. But if you're a black woman in America and you support Planned Parenthood and advocate for abortion rights, you're advocating for genocide. And you yourself have probably a hand in that genocide. Yes, I said it. Y'all got blood on your hands as well. And you're too ignorant and too stubborn and too propagandized and too domesticated an immoral belief system to even recognize that. And that goes for those men out there too. Bunch of beta feminists out there advocating for this shit. And I apologize for some of the strong language, but sometimes I need to make my point across. And that means being a little firm with my words. But I hope you people do some reflecting on this, truly. And think about what you are believing in. Your belief system your belief system could be destroying your livelihood, could be destroying your community, could be aiding in the destruction of humanity. Many of you are so arrogant and so foolish and so disrespectful of yourselves and the world around you that you don't even realize what you're believing in, because you're too arrogant and too egotistical to take that necessary time, do some reflection, and do some studying. You don't want to do that. It's so easier to follow along, monkey see, monkey do. And you wonder why you're in a state of self-destruction. It's no different than with the Republican Party, the woke left, the woke right. It's all the same. Woke right communists arguing against woke left communists. both sides supporting same ideologies. Many of you should be ashamed of yourselves, of your arrogance, of your lack of humility, of your lack of individuality. And I pray for you, and I hope that you all take some serious reflection of my words and heed the warnings. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.